Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast, season 3, episode 32. Took an off week last week, but we're glad to be here. Thank you guys for showing up and hanging out. Got some awesome people here in the chat. We got Mad Cat USA reminding everybody to leave a like, and I'll remind you to get subscribed as well. And if you are looking to support this podcast and the work that we do here, there are links in that description where you can support the channel via YouTube, channel memberships, Patreon, and now PayPal option as well, including other ways to support us as well. So if that's your kind of thing, click those links and make that happen. We are running a new camera, as Cole has pointed out. This is a Sony RX100 Gen 3 that is up from the Canon Vixia HF R800, which was the former camera. The one thing I don't like about this camera, one, it can't zoom anywhere near as much, but two, it doesn't remember where I had it zoomed. So if I zoom in the camera at all, it will always go back to its original note. And in fact, I've actually had to lower the lights in here because this camera is a little bit better at that kind of thing. But we're going to be talking all about pricing and why you're not charging enough, because there's a lot to it, and the cat's deciding now's the right time to take a bath. So leave a like for the cat, if for nothing else. Yeah, we got some other awesome people in here: Winslow Joy, Zerno, Spurluck, Cordell, Jake the Joke Goat, Benjamin Ford, Worse Peter, Cole, of course, Vincent, Robel, and Dud 3-man, Dude Man, probably. Sebastian Jackal's here. Tarsman013 is here. Ben Cox is here. Bright and early in the land down under. And Daddy Wazzy, the creator, is here. I'm not going to make some of those jokes. Speaking of dads, today is my dad's birthday, so make sure to wish him a happy birthday in that chat. It is April 30th, and that means it's my dad's birthday. So we're going to be going out to dinner here after, and I have the quintessentially best gift for my father. He's going to love it. Anyways, let's get into pricing, because his name's Ken. He might end up in here. If you guys haven't met my dad yet, there are 2 previous episodes of the podcast where you can meet my dad if any of the mods want to post them. If not, keep an eye out for Father's Day, because he'll be on, and keep an eye out for Mother's Day, because you'll be able to meet my mother for the first time. And if that means I have to take this entire damn setup to her house, I will, because I have found that I can power this camera off a USB, and it does clean HDMI out, so it's nice and simple, and I'm loving it. So, anyways, let's get into pricing, because it's the one thing that I think legitimately separates a maker from a business, right? If you're doing this as a hobby, just trying to get some extra cash or whatever it is, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm not gonna, poo-poo you for being the type of person that wants to keep it cheap. But you have to understand that your time has value to it. If you were going to be doing this in a day job, and let's just assume it's a $15 an hour minimum wage, because that's honestly what it should be. If you are spending 20 minutes cleaning up a part and you're not charging, see, my dad's in here. If you're not taking account of that time that it takes you to clean your parts up, that kind of thing will bite you in the keister very, very quickly, right? To give you guys an example, the part that's right behind me, I can't talk too much about it, but you'll see it soon, TM. And it's a part that I didn't charge anywhere near enough for, because it was not made immediately clear to me that the entire thing needed to be painted. There is a logo on it that would need to be white, and that was not that big of a deal to me. I can fill it full of white resin, I can cure that white resin, and we move on. And it's no big deal. But at the last minute, the client lets me know that, hey, we need the whole thing painted. And I said, that's not in our original budget. And they said, well, you need to get it done. I said, okay, it's going to cost you. Now, that project did not have enough money in it that I could charge the real value of my time. I had about 2.5 to 3 hours each on those pieces to get them done. And so we're looking at the way that I bill my time out, which we currently bill my time at $150 an hour, you'd be looking at an extra, $450 to get that done. And there were 10 of them. The entire project, before I added on my time, was less than $4,500. So you can't just double the cost because you screwed up. You now have to devalue your time to, well, kind of share that added hit with the customer. Sure, you can charge them the full amount if you want, but they'll never work with you again. And they'll, if you're lucky, they'll pay you. They might just tell you where you can shove it and move on. Geek Toy Box asking if I talked about this a while ago. I did. But we had a lot of people ask about it 2 weeks ago because we took last week off for the Rocky Mountain Rep Fest, which is awesome. Day 2 is coming out on Wednesday. So if you want to see what happened all on day 2, we're going to likely have a bit of a supercut for that of days 3, 4, and 5 for Amber and I, where we hung out in Denver. But we're going to release a lot of that footage raw to our Patreon and YouTube channel members and all of that. So you guys will get the raw footage for that. And there is over 0.5 terabyte of footage that was filmed. And I recently brought out my Sony action cams. This is a HDR AS300. And they're great. They take great video and even better audio. But I use this as a POV cam when we were walking around some of the really awesome places in Denver. So if you want to kind of experience all of that with me, the $5 tier and higher will end up getting access to that footage when we are going to release it. So, Worst Peter says, awesome. I'll make my own cut and sell it on VHS. Well, you know, hey, people still have VHS players and you have a way to record to VHS, by all means, go ahead. That would just be hilarious. But I want it in those foam style enclosures like Disney used to do, because anything other than that is not acceptable to me. So back to pricing. Pricing is one of those things that everybody feels a little bit uncomfortable about, right? Because it basically forces you to say, you need to pay me for what my time is worth. But a lot of us don't really understand the value of our time. And you might have heard the time value of money, but you probably haven't heard about the value of your time, right? An employer is going to pay you about $15 to $100 an hour, depending on what you do and where you do it. And you need to value your time somewhere in that range too. You can go higher, but starting off, charging $150+ an hour for your time, nobody's going to take you seriously. You have to have some kind of basis to put that in there. Whether you have a couple of degrees, that can help. You've got a big portfolio already. So if you're just starting out and you have all of this stuff, make sure you charge accordingly. But if you are just starting out, start low. Start at 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour for your time and work from there, because legitimately, you got to make sure you're billing appropriately for it, because if you're not, it will very much come, especially on these big projects, to bite you in the ass, because you're not going to realize that you're burning a half hour here, a half hour there, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and it's not equating to money. But if you have to sit down and actually work on pieces for 2 to 3 hours each, and you're only making 40 bucks on the whole job, it doesn't make any sense anymore. And you're like, God, I'm spending all of this time for like $5, and it stops being a worthwhile investment. So make sure that you keep that in mind when you are pricing the expected amount of time that you're going to need to take to do things. And when there are changes in the project, and that those are normally called change orders, bill appropriately for those too, and get the money before you bring the job in, because it's very easy for someone to say, oh, well, we never agreed to it, we're just not going to pay you. So be careful on that. But I think to better understand a system for charging, we have to first understand your market. If you're going to be going after consumers don't care about anything other than price. I'm sorry, we're cheap. That's why we go to Amazon and we don't just click the first link there. We go through, we search for the best price, then we have maybe 3 or 4 that are the best prices. Then we're going to compare reviews, but we know not to just look at 5-star reviews anymore because a lot of them are fake. We're looking at 4, 3, 2, and 1-star reviews to see when they were done, why they were done, what were some of the complaints that were had, and have those been addressed in some of the more recent reviews, because that's how we systematically handle things. Now, you might not do that. You might just go to Amazon, oh, I like that one, click buy, and move on. But when you are charging, you have to understand the way that people think. So if you're going to, let's say, I know Daddy Wazzy was DMing me about going to a show where he's going to be selling to the general public. These, and I'm going to use the Magai beer and Crystal Dragons, right? Because those were the big thing. They're, very impulse buy items for consumers. They take, even on a bamboo, like 6.5 or 7 hours to complete. On, slower printers like a Prusa, you're looking at something like, 18 to 26 hours for one damn dragon. And you can't charge $10 an hour for either of those because you're not going to get any sales. And so the trick is, if you're going to be selling to consumers, if you are custom designing stuff, design it with no supports, right? And if that means you have to change your design to modify it to use less supports, great. You're basically running an assembly line, or more politely, a sweatshop, because that's what the customers want. They don't want to pay $80 for a dragon. They want to pay 30 to 40. And yeah, $5 an hour on a bamboo is a pretty good number. You'll pay off that machine relatively quickly, but you're not going to pay it off if you have to be removing things like supports and cleaning up your parts. If you have to do more than just hit the part with a blowtorch to get rid of some of the stringing, you're spending too much time on it. And that alone will start to eat into your margins. And you might say, well, Grant, I'm going to work for 3 weeks to get all of this stuff done. I'm going to go to this convention and I'm going to sell all these dragons for $20 a piece. And you might come out of that that conference or whatever with 10 G's in your pocket. But is that worth 3+ weeks of your time? I mean, I guess 10 G's for 3 weeks of my time is probably worth it. Honestly, yeah, I'd probably take it. Because that's what? It's like $180 to $1,000 a year. So yeah, that's probably good. But you'd have to have how many dragons at $20 a piece to make 10 G's? It's like what? 500 dragons at $20 a piece? Yeah. 500 dragons at $20 a piece to make 10 grand. That's probably unrealistic, to be honest with you. And you're going to spend more than 3 weeks making 500 dragons unless you have a Matter Hackers level army of bamboos or Vorons or something like that. Also, give it up for the hashtag Prusa Mafia. Mr. Ben Cox putting that in the chat. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Spurlux says, remember, when you're paid $15 an hour from an employer, that's on a W-2. And even then, your value is closer to $25 an hour if you get benefits, etc. That can go up even more. That's correct. So when you're paying yourself, you are taking, I think my tax bracket is 29.5%. So, and that's the lowest that I'm aware of in the States right now, for small business owners, right? So about 30 cents of every dollar that I make, I have to pay back to the man every time. And then you're forgetting things like the credit card processing fees that are going to eat somewhere between 3 and 8%, depending on what system you're using and how beneficial it is to you. So that's another bit off the top. So by the end of it, don't be expecting to pocket more than 50 cents on the dollar. And that means that $10,000 that you just made by selling 500 dragons is really only worth $5,000 after you pay everything. And then you have to remember, oh yeah, I need health insurance, there's food, there's dental insurance if that's your thing, there's car payments, there's house payments. All of a sudden that $10,000 doesn't sound like it's worth it, because you're working effectively being owned by your customers for weeks. For what? For what? Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to make some and sell them for $20, $30 just to get the word out, go ahead. I have no pain in that. But you have to remember who your target is. If you're going to like these conventions and all of that, you're looking more at a target of an impulse buy, right? So you want to generally keep your prices at $50 or lower. You can have some nicer stuff at a higher price point, which helps value everything else at a slightly higher level. So if you have something that's for sale that's like $200 or $300, and then you want to sell dragons at 50, you'll have a better chance of that because people see big pieces being big money. So these are medium pieces, these are medium money, right? This is a very common thing you see in movie theaters where oftentimes the best value is the medium popcorn, but they try to sell you very quickly on that large popcorn because, oh, that's the biggest. And you can do this with different models too. You do them in different sizes. Statty Wazzy is saying, I have a UFO fidget spinner that he designed. No supports, 60 grams, 6 hours, 5 minutes post-processing. What should he charge? He's thinking $15, but people spend that probably not more. But would people spend that probably not more like $10? So 6 hours to print. That's the killer, right? So 6 hours to print for $15. That means you're basically earning, what is that, $3 an hour? Is that good math? No, you're earning less than $3 an hour, like $2.50 an hour on that. And if you can put like 30 of them on a build and run it, fine. But when you're looking at running production, you want your pieces to be somewhere between 12 and 20 hours. And then that way you can, have some sleep time in there and not end up burning too much time. The problem becomes a fidget spinner, consumers are not going to pay more than 15 or even $20 max, and they probably do want to be somewhere closer to 10. I would look to see how I can lower the amount of print time. The 5 minutes post-processing probably isn't any longer if you're doing like 5 or 6 of them at a time, right? Because the post-processing is likely something you can assembly line. And then you get a little bit closer to being acceptable at the $15 or $20 mark. You might end up making those if you put a logo on the bottom of it, you put a phone number or a website or something. And those are what is called a loss leader, where you're not making any money on it. You're not making any money on it, but the idea is that it gets that first kind of spark that starts this thought process of what else could we 3D print, right? Something that's quick, that's grabbable, that's really cheap and easy to maintain. Those are good because it gets it into people's hands fast and it reminds them that you exist. It's why, do I have any handy? I don't, because they're all kind of packed up. It's why I make my business cards out of wood. They're cool enough that most people think that they're not free. They're totally free. And then they have this whole, oh my God, these are so nice. They must be so expensive. No, in fact, they grow on trees. I have tons of them. And technically they're bamboo and eucalyptus, which is just hilarious that my business card is made of bamboo and eucalyptus, but hey, whatever. So when you are able to add extra efficiency to your process, you lower your overall time for them. And if one is taking 6 hours, I'd wonder if 2 will take 12, or if 2 is going to take less. Oftentimes, prints take long because they have lots of small detail on them that add up because of minimum layer times. And if you can fit multiples on build plates, you can play this game of, oh, it's not that much more time or that much more expense to go ahead and run multiples on a singular build plate. And yeah, the thing is with these dragons, and I'm going to go back to the dragons because for some reason, everybody likes these damn dragons. I don't, it was a thing, it was huge on YouTube, and people still like them. And they sell really, really well at conventions. We don't make them because I just find them to be a pain in the ass to work with. And they have a relatively high tendency of failure, especially when you're running them fast. And while there are people that can make money doing it, they don't value their time. Even the time for you to take all of these dragons to a show, set them all up on the table, keep them boxed individually for what sizes they are, what colors they are. Because now you need boxes for different sizes. Then inside of that for different colors, so that when someone wants a specific color and size, you can quickly grab it and not have to dig through a bin full of them. Your time is still being booked during those dates as well. So much more is involved in this process than you might actually think. So Mr. Wazzy says he puts QR code stickers to the bottom of all of his prints. Perfect. Love it. I would also look to have the website on that QR code the QR code's probably going to take them to your website. But let's say they're an adult that is getting this for their kid isn't there, and they don't know how to use a QR code. Now, all of a sudden, they have no clue what this is for. They're never going to scan it. Hell, they might even peel it off. But if you put your website on there as well, that sticker now does double duty, where someone that can read, that doesn't necessarily understand technology very well, is still able to take advantage of this process and be able to utilize it more often. So think about going after the average person at these conventions, because the average person might not know the technology as well as you might think. So as Ajax is saying, you need a lot of printers to be able to make that many in reasonable time frames. And that's really the big deal, right? And Ben is saying, not to mention the cost of the printers to punch out 500 dragons in a reasonable time, the power to run them, etc. So I don't necessarily look at the cost of power, because realistically, if you are spending more, if you're spending that much time wondering, oh, am I, taking, into account the 5 cents of power it takes to make one of these, you're spending too much time on the math, and you're being penny wise and dollar stupid, which is where you worry so much about the after the decimal point that you worry very little about the before the decimal point. And remember, profits are made before the decimal point, not after it. And if your profits are being made after the decimal point, we've got a problem. And, making pennies on the dollar is not a good business model. And I understand that a lot of restaurants function on pennies on the dollar, right? They're making 10 to 15% net profit, but they're doing volume. And you are one person. You can't easily do volume. Not without an army of machines, a couple of people to help you run 3 shifts, and some way to, keep the burnout as low as possible, because, oh yeah, that's coming for you too. You might not know that yet. So yeah, it's rough. And as Geek Toy Box says, yeah, I did give him wood at the East Coast Rep Fest and Rocky Mountain. I don't know if I gave you a card at Rocky Mountain, but yeah, everyone's talking about how I gave them my wood at the conventions. Yeah, I like to pass it around. Although I guess it was Home Depot's wood first, so I don't know, man. I don't know. So Daddy Wazzy says he can reduce the time, but the quality goes down. So I would run a few of them at different speeds and really compare them and say, all right, if this is a $20 part, can this one that takes half the time be a $15 part? Remember, you are your biggest critic, and ultimately the general public, unless they already own a 3D printer, is not gonna be all that, discerning and problematic with this. They're gonna look at it and say, oh, cool, 3D printed part, here's some money, I'll take it, right? Oh, cool, it's really cool. They're not gonna look at it and say, you sped that up and got a little bit of extra rigging, didn't you? Trying to get the most profit, didn't you? Now, there might be some random person that does that just to be a dick, but don't listen to them, right? If your average consumer is the person, like your average con goer is the person you're trying to get for your business, they're the ones you need to sell to. Don't sell to yourself. You are a bad customer. Makers are just bad customers overall. We're going to talk about this too. So there is more to it. And as Spurluck is saying, oh, and remember, you do have to have the license and IP rights to sell said prints. Those aren't going to be very expensive. $20 to $50 a month. I don't even consider that like something that I'm looking at in my pricing, unless I'm selling very few of them. Remember, this is a volume game. These are all volume games where you're selling to consumers. It's all about volume. Why do you think Walmarts are so big? It's not so they can stock a lot of products. It's so they can stock a few products and a lot of them. It's why Walmart chooses to have their own house brands, and they put them next to the, name brands, because they make more profit on their, pieces, their stuff that they sell you, versus the ones where other businesses are just getting shelf space. I can go into a whole thing regarding like shelf space and retailing, and even more specifically detailing in retailing. but we're not going to do that. That we're going to say for the Making Awesome Academy, because that's a talk I should actually, like, have people pay for. So Mr. Creator says, I've done all that already. It's why he has a small version that's 25 grams, 2.5 hours for $8. I would up that to $10, or down to $5. $8 is an odd number, and if someone gives you cash, you're gonna have a lot of ones on you to give them, the stuff back. And what we like to do is just price, especially at conventions, price everything tax inclusive, right? That way you're not having to give, coins and stuff. People want to say, oh, these are $40. Here's 2 20s, take the part and go. Here in Florida, it's 7% sales tax in Pasco County, so that's what I have to pay for my sales tax. So I'm going to eat that 7% to not have to deal with giving change, because the time to give change adds up very, very fast. Because who's going to have $8 on them? They're going to have a 10. They're going to have 2 5s. Maybe they actually have $8 on them. But if you're not bringing at least $100 worth of ones to an event like that to give change when you are doing $8 parts, you're going to run out of money, and you're going to have to basically go to a vendor next to you and be like, hey, I got $20 if you got 21s. Let's make it happen. So, yeah, that's a fun one. So, yeah. Anyways. Whereas Peter says, in my experience, the average normies are impressed with layer lines because they can see it's 3D printed. There is totally a thing for that, where you can run a little bit thicker layers because the average person will love it. Again, you are obviously the biggest critic of your own parts, and you really do have to be careful about that stuff. And as Zerno says, maybe they are a stripper on the side and have a lot of ones to get rid of. Maybe, but if they pull it out of their underwear, don't accept it. If it comes out of underwear, don't accept the money. Okay? Like, just go tell them to give you clean money, because no one wants underwear money. Well, no, Grant, don't respond to that. Don't respond to that statement. Most people don't want underwear money. There it is. And as Zombie says, not just a bigger nozzle, but optimized profile. Don't print 0.4 millimeter infill with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle if you value your time. Yeah, so you can absolutely look at doing things like combining infill every 2 layers. I looked at this. I didn't see it inside of Bamboo Studio, which is weird. I would have liked to see that inside of there, because I've been doing some parts that are 0.08 millimeter layers. Yeah, 80 micron layers. And being able to do infill every 3 or even 4 layers would be fine, but I can't do that. So honestly, it's like, okay, well, maybe then the speed of the Bamboo isn't as useful as it would be. Now, printers with input shaping are obviously going to run a lot faster. Things like the Voron or a Rook or something like that you can get for relatively affordably priced will end up producing parts faster than something like a Mark 3S or even a Mark 4, because they still don't have input shaping. I'm going to do a video on that coming soon, TM. We're going to talk all about that because, yeah, it's a thing. Anyways. And as Zombie says, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 are all good increments. I would argue that 30 is not a good increment because that requires people to also have 10s around. And if you have a $10 item, a $30 item, I don't know. It is also good to offer bulk discounts. So if you're selling the dragons maybe at the $25 or $30 range, you can do, let's say you're doing them for $25, do 3 for $60. And that will get people, instead of buying 2, because that'll be $50, you'd get 3 of them for $10 more. And while you are reducing your net profit, you're playing a volume game, because now that person is spending an extra $10 with you that they weren't spending previously. And we all know the cost of filament is negligible here. A dragon runs like, what, 150 grams of filament, 200 grams of filament? Even at 200 grams, that's $5. Okay? So if you can sell a third one for $10 extra, that is $5 extra in your pocket that you might end up not having to take that dragon home with you. So, And as Zombie says, Orca Slicer Gang. Yeah, I need to look at that. As Cordell says, combining infill layers. It isn't Bamboo Studio? Really? Am I that crazy? I have not seen it in there. I have advanced. Oh, I am literally looking into it right now because it's going to bother me if I don't see it. No, it's not, because under strength, we get our infill, and all we get is sparse infill density and sparse infill pattern. That's it. Oh shit, there's a button for infill combination. Son of a... Gosh dang it. But it doesn't let you combine... It will automatically combine them. It doesn't let you set how many. So... Alright, whatever. I missed the button. Oh well. Is what it is. Yeah, Sun Turtle Camp says, don't buy an Ender 3 S1 Pro if you value your time. The Pro stands for you have to be a professional to use it and do troubleshooting crap 3D printer don't buy. You gotta be careful about the printers that you're purchasing as well. They need to be designed to run production, right? Because if they're not, you're going to spend more time working on your printers. Like, the amount of time I've spent working on even my second Bamboo is just... It's just dumb. It's dumb stupid, the amount of time that I've spent. And if I bill my time at $150 an hour, the second Bamboo is already over a $4,000 expense to me and my company. So it's like, with the amount of, like, it did a 7-hour print in 32 hours. Because it kept needing constant interaction. And if you're in our Discord, and you were hanging out last night, you experienced every single time that I had to get up and go work on the Bamboo. It happened a lot during those calls. Ah, damn it. Yeah, I missed the infill combination. It's a friggin' button. I'm used to in Per Slicer where you can choose how many layers of infill you combine. Oh well, happens to the best of us. John Drayton is asking, any advice for designing a new extruder and slicer? No. Well, not for free. Let's go with that. There's some of my time that I will give for free, like these podcasts, obviously we give for free. All we ask is you leave a like, get subscribed, and if you do want to donate, there are tons of abilities to do that. But if I'm going to be going into a consulting setting with a business or someone that is looking to do something, you got to pay for my time. And the 15 years of experience comes with a price. Sorry, it does. And that's part of it, right? Like, I will give basically anybody 25 minutes of my time, right? So if you have a question you want to ask and you want to, book some time in my calendar, you can do that right on our website. But if you go over 25 minutes, I'll let you know and say, hey, we're getting close to 25-minute mark. If you want to continue, I'll send you a bill that you can pay before we continue, because I need to value my time as well. So just to be clear. And as Geek Toybox says, don't get the K1. Karate Ready / price 30% to resellers while the printers are on a boat on the way here. Yeah, there's been some drama about the K1. But, I mean, honestly, if you're looking at a K1, you just don't care about your privacy. So, yeah. We are going to be building some Vorons, so I'll be able to compare the Vorons up against all the other printers here in the shop. I think that's going to be a really, really good comparison. And I'm kind of looking forward to it because I've wanted to build a Voron for a while. Just something to look at. So let's go the flip side of this pricing strategy system and look at selling to businesses. And specifically, let's look at, companies that really do need your services. So we've talked about this in previous episodes about finding the right target market that needs your services and are willing to pay it. Let's just assume you already have that, because you can go back and listen to those episodes if you want. The pricing for businesses is more expensive than what you would give to a consumer. And stop thinking that you need to give a better price to businesses. You don't. They expect to pay more because they expect better service. A customer wants to buy a part and then likely never hear from you again unless they have a problem, and then they want a refund with free return shipping. A business is going to want support related to the product as well. So if you're making a product for a business, make sure that you are also accounting for the time that it takes to support it. And I'm not just talking about actual support material. I'm talking about phone conversations, emails, back and forth, and even worse, if they don't pay you immediately and they put you on a net terms. We're going to talk about net terms. Actually, let's get into net terms. Net terms is a small business's nightmare. It means that you have to float all the costs for X amount of days. We don't generally give net terms unless the client has already done $5,000 of business with us, or is looking to get into a contractual agreement with us, which is more of a take or pay contract, where they have a minimum amount of business they must do with us every quarter. And if they don't, they must pay out that difference. If they do above it, great. They, benefit from reduced pricing, better lead times, and preferential treatment when it comes to putting things on printers. But it's not often you find companies that are willing to enter into one of those levels of deals. Those are companies that are in the Fortune 100 level and above generally. So, take that with whatever grain of salt that you want. Josh McVeigh is asking, where's the Mark 3S stand as a new machine purchase right now? I don't think you should be purchasing them brand new. I would look at a Mark, excuse me, I would look at a Mark 3S used before I buy them new. Outside of like new rails, there's not a whole lot that goes wrong with them. The ones behind me have ran for thousands of hours with little to no problems to speak of, period. And they run really, really, really well. But they're really slow. And when you do compare them to modern machines, and especially a Voron, looking at a Rook being in the $300 price point, which you do have to 3D print yourself and then assemble it, so there are some costs involved in that, I might look at a Rook being a better value. Now, I have to build one first to really give that idea, print out parts from MK3S and a Bamboo and some other printers to really see where does it land in it. I think a Mark 3S is a good printer, but I think if you're paying over $500 for them, you're spending too much money. There are a lot of better printers out there for the money, and in my opinion, the Poverty Prusas, otherwise known as the Silval SV06 and the SV06 Plus, are pretty damn good for, $250 to $350. So keep that in mind. And they're brand new. So you don't have to worry about somebody else kind of, dealing with it. May contain hijinks is asking, salutations, Grand and 3D Musketeers crew. New viewer who totally hasn't been binging 3D Musketeers videos during the last week while doing 3D scanner research. Well, hopefully you've enjoyed them. 3D scanners are a fun one. We will have a podcast coming up about 3D scanners. I think next week we're going to end up doing the state of 3D printing and kind of looking at Cartesian versus Core XY, input shaping versus non-input shaping, really kind of talking about where the industry is kind of heading right now, because we just got through Q1 and now we're in Q2. So I would really like to kind of look at the last quarter and kind of talk about it. I think this is good for us to do once a quarter, where we just kind of look at what has changed in the past few months and decide how that's going to adjust the future for the rest of the year. I don't know. Seems like it would be fun. Let me know if you guys would want to see more stuff around that. Yeah, but as Zombie's saying, the Rook is a bit small, but the quality to price ratio is great. So, yeah. Flying bearings are a maintenance feature. It's a selling point over Bamboo, where you can't get the bearings out. K1 does it for you. For those who don't know, there was a video leaked of the K1 that someone got, and it was just a disaster. Things were broken, bearings had come out of it, and yeah. Anyways, shifting gears a bit, how do you price something new to market like chocolate prints? That one's a fun one, and if you are in an area that doesn't have a good immediate target market, you have to start high and start calling people. So you start your prices high and see if they complain. If you get a few people that are complaining over and over again, like it's the same thing. Oh, you're too expensive. Oh, you're too expensive. Oh, you're too expensive. Maybe you are too expensive, especially if that is the target market you're going after. If there isn't a perceived or known value for the product that you're doing, maybe it is the wrong product. But something like a chocolate printer, call bakeries, call wedding venues, call wedding planners, and offer these as, extras that they can do. Things like having a custom topper for a wedding cake that is printed in chocolate that, oh yeah, you can do 100 of them, one for every place setting at the tables, and then you can 3D print in chocolate each person's name so they know where they're sitting. This is where, having that new market can open up a different world to you. but specifically chocolate 3D printing is going to be an interesting one to see, because at the price point that Ellie is putting them at $1,500, but by the way, Cocoa Press, if you haven't seen it, like, come on. That price point is low enough that shops may try to get them in themselves and try to learn how to do it. And chances are they're not going to be able to do it. So if you are looking at chocolate 3D printing and you have shops around you that would be interested, you can let them know about it. They might choose to buy the machine themselves, but chances are they're going to have a really bad time running it, and it might make more sense for you to be the person and you say, hey, you buy the machine, I'll run it for you. I know how to run it, and I'll just give you really good pricing, right? I'll basically give you as close to cost as I can get because you own the machine. But when you're not using the machine, I can use the machine for myself. We've done that with customers in the past where it's basically a rent-to-own method where they buy the machine for us, we then use it for them, and then we make payments on it to eventually own it ourselves. And what that does is it enables that company, for the time that we're paying that machine to them, to get considerably better pricing than they would normally get. And then when we pay it off, it's ours. So they benefit for 6 months or so while we're paying it off, and then they go back up to regular pricing. And that's actually really good for a business that needs a very hyper-specific thing, but doesn't want to hire in somebody. You can be the person they hire in. It's actually kind of interesting. Daddy Wise, the creator, says, I have an SV06 Plus. Prints off the bat are amazing, and I haven't put Clipper on it yet. Yeah, so we call them poverty proofs because honestly, that's kind of what they are. I have an SV06 Plus. I can see it. It is in the box. We're going to be unboxing it. I don't know, maybe sometime next week. There's also a Flying Bear Reborn 2 that I need to take a look at as well that we'll be unboxing. So if you do like the unboxing streams, get subscribed because that is obviously coming. So, yeah, as Ben says, it's a Coca-Cola versus Mercedes analogy. Don't get caught up in a race to the bottom. And unfortunately, that is one of the big places that people get caught up in. Don't be the, Daihatsu of 3D printing, right? Do they make okay cars? Yeah, but you're not going to get 250,000 miles out of a Daihatsu. You're going to need to rebuild the engine 5 or 6 times, right? Be the steel of the chainsaw industry, where Steel knows they make some of the best chainsaws on the market. Husqvarna knows they do as well. And they charge for it. You can go get the Harbor Freight Special that will probably work. But if you want something that's going to work, you pay the money for it. And businesses aren't always looking for the cheapest option. And if they are, they're probably not the right customers for you. Price accordingly, because being too cheap is as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than being too expensive. And as Spurlock says, you need food licensing, etc., and be able to handle things. Yeah, and that's why if the business buys it, you can operate under their license. So licensing with food stuff, be careful. So, yeah. Anyways, Jonas E says, hey, I wanted to buy the Cheedy X Plus 3 for my business, but they now decided to spend more time developing it. Maybe I should buy a used Mark 3S Plus for the meantime. It might be worthwhile. I don't have a contact with Cheedy. I would like to, because I would like to take a look at it. But yeah, I don't know. And as Ajax says, cottage law is going to be a big thing. If you are going to be getting into the food industry, please look into your local laws, because there is a lot regarding food that can bite you in the ass very quickly. So yeah, if you're looking at chocolate 3D printing and all that, make sure you have the licensure to do it, or you're operating under cottage law. Because if you are screwing up any of that, you can not only get fined, but they can shut your business down. And that's a pain. Also, if you're in the United States, you need to do your refiling for your businesses tonight, because yeah, tonight's the last night that you can do it. Or I guess it's through May 1st, so it's through tomorrow. But yeah, make sure you do your annual reports tonight, because if you haven't done it yet, you gotta do it. Get those done. Okay, so Central Capers asking, does the SV06 work as good? And do they hold up like a Prusa? I don't have enough time on mine to really decide if they hold up like Prusas, but Other than I'm worried about the planetary gears lasting. They're all plastic. They've got bearings on them, but the gears themselves are actually plastic. And I'm worried that over time that's going to be a problem for those machines. So I don't know if they're going to hold up as well, but at least in the initial like few months that I've had it and used them, they seem to work pretty well. Like to the point of that I spent my own money to buy an SV06 Plus. So that should kind of give you an idea of where I stand on it. But yeah, inside of the SV06, the gears are plastic. If they're metal inside of the Plus, great. So we'll listen. But yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I'm afraid special. It'll cut through your leg. Well, most chainsaws will cut through your leg. So, you know, but yeah, it is this, buy once, cry once kind of thing. And and that's like why you see a lot of Prushas in our shop. They're not the cheapest printers. They're not the fastest. They're not the prettiest. They are the most reliable that I've worked on. And the reliability alone is why I spend the Prusa tax. Because when it comes down to it, reliability matters. Now, to be clear, when we left for the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest, I put 4 parts, identical parts. 1 on a Bamboo, 2 on a Prusa, 1 on an SV06. All 4 of them failed. So it was likely my fault, honestly, but, they all failed. So take that with whatever grain of salt that you want. But I'm going to bring up an actual example that's happened to me. It was in the architecture industry. We had done some parts for, at the time, one of the business partners' dads. He is a pretty well-known architect here in Tampa. I'm not going to name anybody because that's not fair and not right. And we gave him these models. I sent him a bill for $500, which to me was well worth it. The parts didn't take very long. They were like maybe like a day or so, day and a half each to get done. The support removal was really simple. I think I spent 15 minutes on it, so $500 seemed right. He sent it back to me and said, I think you sent me the wrong number. I'm expecting this to be in the $1,500, $2,500 range. And that was his nice way of saying, hey, idiot, you're not charging enough. And so I sent him a bill for $1,500, and it was made aware to me that he likes a very specific bison grass vodka from Poland. So we actually imported a case of it, and I included a bottle of that when he came and picked up the models. And that is how you earn somebody's respect. He helped me out by letting me know, hey, I can literally pay you an extra $1,000 and it does not hurt me at all. And so my thank you is that bottle. I still have one and I have not yet opened it. When we have a 6-figure year, I'll open that bottle. So that will be a thing. May Contain Hijinks says, your videos have definitely been helpful. I didn't know until your videos that Creality was being intrusive with software, thus a change in gears to looking elsewhere. Well, I'm glad that we could help. The Creality cloud system is pretty problematic. And if you haven't liked the video, go ahead. And if you do want to come hang out with us, the $10 tier or higher on all the ways to support us gets you access into our private Discord server where you can come hang out with myself and the other Musketeers. Normally after streams, I'll hop right into live chat. But today I got to get ready to go to my dad's birthday, so I'm going to go do that. So maybe I'll come in for like 15 minutes to say hi to people, because I'm fairly certain they're all there hanging out right now. Oh, a couple of them are. Normally they go into the voice chat to make fun of me while I'm streaming. So, that's a very typical thing that happens. So yeah, again, when it comes down to it, you need to make sure that you price accordingly and appropriately, because I don't want, Professor Posner, that's right, Dr. Posner, in fact. He's not actually a professor, but he does have his doctorate, so you can call him Dr. Posner. You just called me Grant, you call him Dr. Posner. And as Chris Catlett says, I was running a space heater for 4 days. Yeah, so one of the Prushas that failed, it ground the filament so much that it broke. So it detected a filament runout, and when it does that, it leaves the bed. I had a camera set up so I could monitor the printers, but I thought it had just finished. I didn't notice that it was actually waiting for the filament to be preheated. So it was running the bed for like 4 or 5 days, which was like 50 watts constantly for those days. So that was a few dollars in lost money. But, That happens. Worst Peter says, I bet it was Victoria's fault. Yeah, probably. Probably was. But net terms are something that I didn't talk about enough, but net terms are a problem. When you work with, especially trade industries, they will basically force you into like a net 30. And we always ask about it. Do you require terms? Because if you do require terms, I'm adding money to your budget. Because that means I need to float the cost, right? When we do custom design work for people, there are staff members that need to get paid. They have bills to pay too. They need to get paid. And that means I, as a business, must float that cost for an extended period of time, whether that is 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 30 days, 60, 90, 120. That stuff starts to get expensive. And that means it becomes a liability on my books rather than just, paying a contractor, paying an employee. And that is something to really, really keep in mind. Because if you don't keep track of that, you're going to end up finding yourself like, we screwed up. I forgot to ask it on a project, and a project was net 30, and it was a $5,000 project that was net 30, and I had to float over $1,000 of staff expenses on that project for 30 days. So last month in our books, we lost like $1,500, all because of that. I did not think to ask about terms. Those mistakes happen, and those are 100% my fault. Now, we got paid this month, so this month will have a lot of profit in it, and it makes up for last month, because it always kind of equals out at the end. But it kind of freaks you out when you get a report from your accountant or your accounting software, and it's got the parentheses around the number, because that means you lost money, and nobody likes to lose money. It's not good. And as Chris Catlett says, federal government is net 120, and that's when they actually pay on time. Yeah, imagine having to float your expenses for 4 months while you wait for the government to cut you a check that'll probably come another 30 days late. It's why government contracting is so lucrative, is because you can charge so much because it's going to take you forever to get paid. So yeah, it's like government, you just add another zero to it, pretty much, is the way that it runs. Because if you don't, you're gonna end up getting stuck where you might not be able to pay your people, and that is really, really embarrassing. And you never want to find yourself in that position. Big Jano says, after formerly being in an industry where it was always lowest bid wins, it needs to be reprogrammed in our head not to short yourself in pricing and time, especially the time. Yeah, we've had some people in the Discord talk about times where they've worked on jobs that had like a $500 profit, and that meant that anything that went wrong, that profit was evaporated. Like big jobs, like $100,000 jobs that had a $500 profit margin. And I can understand that you might take a job for less money to get that client in your books. Like we're doing that right now for a client where I'm deliberately taking a job for less than I normally would because I want to get in bed with this client and do more business with them. And you could slowly raise somebody's prices over a certain amount of time. That's fine. That's normal. But if you're not the lowest bidder on something, you might, or you don't start with a number that is reasonable to them, you're not going to get in. Once you're in, it's difficult to get out, right? It's like once you start working with government, you're in, right? And you have an in, and you might have people that you work for. So yeah, be careful about always being the cheapest. It's not bad to do it once or twice to get known and get heard, but don't always be the cheapest. It's not about being the cheapest. And I say cheap because it's not being affordable. It's about being cheap. Don't be cheap. It's about being cheap. Red/Ace is asking, would I build a 300 or 350 millimeter Voron? I would build a 350. The bigger, the better. Bigger, the better. Because that opens up more ability for you to do bigger parts. Yeah, and as Ben Cox says, him forgetting to put a build sheet on his printer and remotely sending a print. Went to check on the print, it had been auto-leveling for 3 hours. That's the benefit of a Prusa. It knew there wasn't a plate, and it was just kind of waiting for you to figure it out. Yeah, don't be the cheapest. Don't be the cheapest. It's not good. It's not good. Daddy Wise says invoice due upon receipt after 10 days goes up by 10% and 10 more every 3 days until paid. That might not be legal. Check into that to make sure that's legal. I am fairly certain that's not legal. I think you might be above the Fed rate. So be careful on that. George White says, should I pay for a Patreon subscription and print and sell that way? I bought a brand new MK3 and get the free printables files that are commercial and sell that way. Okay, so if there is a non-commercial license on something, you obviously can't print it and sell it. Now, what we do is in a lot of, print businesses, we operate on the don't ask, don't tell method. If somebody sends me a project that is, obviously it's protected, I don't ask because it's not my job to ask. The only time we ask is if it's Disney related. I don't touch stuff that's Disney related. Obviously, they've been litigious in the past. They're a little busy with our governor right now, so I don't think they're going to care, but Disney has historically been pretty litigious against creators that have sold things with Disney IP. And to be clear, it is not legal to do that. When someone sends us a part that does have Disney stuff on it, it's not legal. But it's not my job to police it. I'm not the police. They broke the law. I'm the one assuming that they have it. It is not my responsibility. This is how Kinko's is able to get away with the things that they do. It's the same deal. It's not our job. We are not the police. You police yourself. Not my job. Anyways. Printer Prawn says, I got screwed hard on a net 30. Delayed paying me another month while still doing work for them. And they got all sued and filed for bankruptcy and lost it all. They knew what they were doing. If a company is late paying you on a net 30 job, do not do more work for them because they're not going to pay you. This is how we get screwed the most. It's also why we do not give terms to new companies. We don't do it. If you are less than 2 years old, I am not giving you terms. I don't care how much you tell me to do it. I'm not doing it. I don't trust you. I have no reason to trust you. You don't even have enough to trust yourself. It's very easy to bankrupt a company. And that means everybody in that process gets screwed. And while you could go after them, chances are it's fully underneath the LLC's umbrella and you're in a log line of people that they likely owe money to. Take that as a relatively cheap learning lesson and move on. It sucks. I've been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt. In the past 2 years, we've been screwed for over $5,000 worth of work. So it happens. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do the project. Seriously. Or get more money up front. If the project is over $1,000, we do require a contract, right? So if your product is going to be over $1,000, you're signing a contract with us because it's not worth me getting screwed. And that can include lots of fun terms in there. It's why we have an attorney that does all that stuff for us. And yes, it cost me a lot of money in the beginning, but that money was well spent because we took it and utilized it to make sure the business is as reasonably bulletproof as it can get. It needs to withstand the punches that random people and businesses bring at it. And those contracts will scare away businesses that aren't ready for that kind of commitment. They're not ready to make a $1,000 order from you. So, that's the deal. And, this whole idea of the blue ocean strategy where you don't try to compete with others, you find that hole, that's what's important. Don't join these Patreons because, you can sell their stuff. Join a Patreon to sell stuff because you found a hole in a market that you can fill that will actually be good money to you. Be careful about that stuff because it will very, very quickly come up onto you and become a problem. John Olson says his wife works in the exhibit industry as a designer. All work has been traditionally done on spec. Devalues the work, blows his mind. Yeah. Be careful with some industries that are notorious for being problems to the staff because they're just as bad as other industries that are, not so good, if you will. Just try to think of the right way to say don't be a dick and don't work with dicks, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to is, be good and work with good people. Ajax saying the Voron 24 is coming out in December. They were saying it's only about $3,000 to build a Voron 24, and For $3,000, I'm kinda down. Especially if LDO makes a kit. I would do it. The problem is you can't fit them through a standard man door. So if I build it, it has to stay in my garage, which is just like a ridiculous thing to think about. But I'm fine with that. It's a 600 millimeter build volume cubed. It's a big damn printer. Yeah. Big Jana says Disney lawyers are tighter than skinny jeans. Well, some of the stuff they've been doing is just beautiful, and it warms my cold heart. Although I have some heartburn right now, so maybe that it's Disney lawyers giving me heartburn. I don't know. It's probably Disney lawyers. Geek Toybox asks, isn't Mickey Mouse public domain now? Yes, Mickey Mouse is, but the actual ears are not. The idea of Mickey Mouse is public domain, but not the actual like ears and stuff. Duff says better off selling crack than dealing with Disney. You ain't wrong. Honestly, I'd rather go to jail than get sued by Disney. At least in jail, you don't have to you don't have to pay lawyers all the time. So, take your wins where you can get them, I guess, right? Engineered AF says we had a problem with a customer like that, so we had them do COD, cash on delivery. I don't like COD because they can just duck you. Or they give you a bad check. I had a customer write a bad check once. I threatened to sue the ever-loving hell out of them. Don't write me a bad check. There's nothing more dangerous than a small business owner that has just been screwed, because they will slow down other projects and tell people, hey, there's going to be some project delays, just so they can make a point. That's the thing, right? When you're a small business owner and someone screws you, it feels overtly personal. And you want revenge, right? The idea of getting revenge and seeing them pay is totally worth the effort. Not saying I've never done it before, but I've definitely done it before. Printer Prawn says they had been a great client for several years. Only reason I trusted them. My rules now don't work for bottom feeders. Screw me once, you'll screw me again. Even bigger. Yeah, if you've been working for somebody for years and, they're a little bit like we have a client that's like notoriously about a week late every time they pay me. Because they wanted net 30. I told them no. I would give them net 7. And we somehow came to agree on net 20. Don't ask me how we came to agree on net 20, but it happened. And they normally pay me net 30. So I've been raising their prices. Because if you need me to hold the money for another 10 days, then I'm going to charge you more for it. But they did recently change over to a new AP company that pays out, and they've been paying on time. So that's actually good. I'm happy to see those kinds of things. John also says, I work in the legal tech industry on the software engineering side. My company appreciates keeping the lawyers busy. Well, yeah. No, I'm sorry. I don't like keeping lawyers busy personally. They're too expensive for me. Engineered AF says, yeah, if you join a Patreon to sell designs with hundreds of other print farms, either A, a race to the bottom, or B, it's a marketing competition. Yeah, like we talked about selling on Etsy before, where a lot of the Eastern European sellers that are buying filament directly out of China, getting it for sub $10 a kilo, running massive print farms with, considerably lower expenses compared to, a developed nation. They can sell for less, and people are often willing to wait. It is fun to me when people call me and they need something very fast, and I tell them I can't help them. They can look at Etsy. And they say, well, we looked at Etsy, and, they're, 1/4 of your price, but they take 2 months to deliver. And I just get quiet and I wait for them to understand that that's why. That's why they're cheaper, because it's a 2-month delivery. Like, you could make an injection mold something in that time. Like, get over it. And yeah, there are expenses involved with this kind of thing, and you kind of have to be careful. And if someone's going to come and say, well, I can get it on Etsy for less, go get it on Etsy. By all means, have fun. I don't care. And if you're coming into my shop and trying to tell me that my time isn't worth it, then go buy it from somebody else. Because if someone isn't going to value your time, you probably shouldn't be valuing theirs either, and you should try to give them as little of your time as possible. If the first thing customer says is that, oh, I've been shopping around and I'm just looking for the best quote, I say, we're not going to be able to provide it. That's it. I don't even give them a number. They say, well, why wouldn't you try to give me a quote? I said, because we don't compete on price. If you want the quality that we produce and the speed that we produce it and, everything that comes with working with 3D Musketeers, great. You can work with us. We are not the cheapest. We will give you some of the best quality you've ever seen with some of the best communication that you've ever seen. And if you're really cool, I'll even put you in videos, right? I'll use your parts for time lapses and all that. So it's a double win, and you get a 33,000 subscriber YouTube channel that's showing off your parts. So there are non-monetary benefits to working with us that people just don't get. And I'm okay with turning away a $50 job because someone else is probably going to do it for $20, because I'm not going to lower my pricing. If they wanted to do 1,000 of them and were willing to sign a contract, then I'm happy to lower my pricing and we can talk about it. But it also depends on what the work is needed. Let's talk about volume. Volume, and not just the volume for my microphone, is all about getting that number. Everyone wants to say, oh, well, what if I make 500 of them? Can you give me a better price? Well, it depends, because the amount of time that I have to spend working on a part probably doesn't change all that much as you do multiples. In fact, it might even go up some, because it now requires me to take physical time, set it aside, and work on your parts versus, sitting at my desk, being able to take phone calls with a headset, and then, working on your parts with tools and shit. Now I have to dedicate time to doing it. That might be more expensive. But oftentimes, when you are looking at a bulk order run, it makes a lot of sense to just cut them a better deal. That's what they're looking for anyways. People look at the more pieces they order, the better price. We start that at 50 pieces. I am not going to cut you a better deal unless you do more than 50 pieces from us. And if you are going to do more than 50 pieces from us, you're likely getting a contract for it, because I'm going to make you pay, and you're going to pay 50% of that up front. And then progress payment for progress delivery. We'll ship out the first 20, the next 20, and the final 10, or, something along those lines. So yeah, be careful, because those big orders where people want big discounts can really remove your margins. And that's why it's good to pad with lots of margin, right? Just because you're making 600% on your money and your time does not mean that you're a bad person. It means you're a good business person. If people are still willing to pay you and you're making over, 600% on the cost of materials, great. You found a model that can probably pay you decent money. But now you have to keep it busy. If you're not if you're not able to at least triple your cost, you're not going to make any money doing this at all. Because the labor involved in all of this starts to add up, including things like shipping. Packing and shipping, my God, that's a time suck. And there are even good ways to automate it. It still takes a long time. So don't be afraid to really look at charging extra. Like, someone might say, oh, well, if I do 500 parts, can you get me to this price? And my response is normally, well, we can cut you a discount, but it's not going to be as much as you think. Because the fact that these are custom items means that my time doesn't really change per part. I might be able to reduce it a little bit, but if I'm cutting you a discount, I'm just directly cutting into my profit margin. And as a business, I've got expenses and I've got people that we need to pay. And because of that, we have to make sure that we charge accordingly. And often people totally understand it when they remember that this isn't injection molding and that making 500 of something is a lot more work than you might think. It's not just go over to the machine and just click print and it will shoot off 500 of them. No, it's going to shoot off like maybe 4. I got to take those off, start the next 4, clean these, go to the next printer, clean those, start the next 4. I'm running an assembly line for a couple of weeks. There's expenses involved in that don't go away. And like I said, might actually go up. Pantone Diago. Sorry. Pantone Diago says, should I worry about China copying a direct-to-consumer product? Is it worth even going through with producing the product if it's just going to get copied? Well, if that was your mantra for it, then you shouldn't be in this industry, because chances are if you have a product that sells well, within 180 days of it landing on store shelves, you will find like copycats of it getting landed from China. That's the way it goes. It's why we recommend that people maintain USA manufacturing or local manufacturing when you can, because the molds don't end up getting out there. When you go to China, oftentimes their prices are a lot cheaper, but if you look in the fine print, you don't own the molds. The company owns the molds, and then they can produce competing products when you're not using those molds. They're not going to leave molds sitting on a shelf. A USA manufacturer might be okay with that. They're going to probably charge you a fee to hold the molds, but these are things you have to consider. And if you are really looking at wanting to go to market in a meaningful way, you better have $250,000 that you can take outside, stack into a nice little pile, pour gasoline onto it, and light a match and watch it burn and feel nothing but the heat from the fire. Because going to market is incredibly expensive. And in fact, just the production is not even the highest cost. Things like your marketing, your packaging, how it gets detailed inside of a store, your market research, all of that equates to more expenses than just the making of the parts. So I wouldn't necessarily be too worried about being copied right now. You're still likely in the prototyping stages. Worry about prototyping. But if you are going to patent something, file your patent as physically late as you possibly can. Get a provisional. If you need to, file a new provisional and then file that patent as soon as that product hits the shelf. Because as soon as you file your real patent, your drawings are now in public record. And that means that anybody that has any semblance of reverse engineering can take those drawings, reverse engineer it into a mold, and copy you. And if you don't have patents in other countries that do produce it, your only hope is utilizing U.S. Customs and Border Patrol to stop those shipments before they get offloaded from the boat. Because as soon as they hit and they're on trucks, they're gone, and you're now needing to hire a lot of lawyers and spend a lot of money to do it. So be very, very careful about that kind of thing. Going to market is nowhere near as easy as you think. I guess we're talking about sketches and stuff in here as well. I'm glad you guys are helping each other out with CAD. Cool. Making Hijinks says, since you've put the fear of these scary small business owner out for revenge in me, is there a wrong way to contact 3D Musketeers if I'm looking for scanning info, or is the Patreon Discord better? Yeah, just hit the Patreon Discord. And if you want to email me, you can, YouTube at 3dmusketeers.com. The best thing to do with scanners, if you do want advice on a scanner, if you're looking to buy one, is email me, tell me a budget, and let me know if you already have a computer and what the specs are to run it. Because then I'm more than happy to give you some numbers of what you should be expecting and looking for. Oftentimes it's down to a few, like the Revo Point Range, the Shining 3D Einstar, because they're sub $1,000. They're not that bad. The range doesn't even require a very powerful computer. In fact, I had it with me the entire time at the East Coast Rep Rap Festival. It was in my backpack because it is so tiny. It doesn't really require a lot of extra space, and it can run on a freaking phone. The Einstar requires a pretty powerful computer because it eats RAM like crazy. But again, you're not really looking at a ton of extra money if it's something that you already have. Anyways. Geek Toyback says, you never print my stuff. You never send me stuff to print. Or are you saying print the stuff on the channel? A lot of times when, creators and, designers contact us, the parts have to make sense for us to make for time lapses. If they're like thin pieces, they don't time lapse very well. It ends up being like, 20 photos, which is not even a second worth of video. So we don't generally go that way because it doesn't make, it doesn't make for good content. Yeah. Oh, Dom needs affiliate links. I mean, I'll give you affiliate links. I'm happy to do that. We have his Amazon affiliates in the description. Go click it. As Ben says, big volumes and or big prints push up the risk for failed prints, and that's true. If you are looking to get jobs that have bigger build volumes that require bigger builds, charge big money for it. We had a client reach out to us to do a piece. I just sent them photos of it because we just finished it yesterday. And I said, hey, just so you know, I'm going to cut this thing in half. We could make it in one piece, but it will be faster, more affordable, and much easier on me if we can cut it into two pieces. Just literally cut it down the middle. And so they said, well, what's the price if you don't? And I gave them the price. I said, oh, yeah, that's pretty expensive. I said, yes, it's this price if you cut it. It's this price if you don't. You decide. And they said, oh, yeah, go ahead and cut it. And then I sent them a picture of the pieces. They said, oh, wow, those fit together pretty well. I said, yep, there's going to be a visible seam like we talked about. But realistically, it saved them almost 50% on their cost. So bigger printers cost bigger money. We have some big printers. They cost big money. And if you want to print big parts, they come with those issues of, if that printer fails, I'm out like multiple days. It's not just like I'm out 6 or 7 hours. I'm out like 2 days. And it's always the time that kills you. It's never the cost of the material. It's the time. Because you can buy more filament. What you can't do is buy more time. At worst, Peter says at 500 parts, it might make sense to outsource. And that's true. We do have outsourcing partners that we work with for certain technologies where I've built rapport with these companies. So we get wholesale discounts so that, they say, this is our retail. This is what we're charging you. Don't go above our retail price. No problem. Got you covered, man. And they give me enough meat on the bone that it makes sense to do business with them. We do enough parts a month that it makes sense for them to continue that business model with us. And life is good. No complaints from either party, and that makes it a lot easier. A lot easier. Geek Toy Bike says, I was trying to send affiliate links to clients who constantly ask for product recommendations. Of a couple dozen links that were sent, 0 were captured, so I gave up. Yeah, I will often do that. I mean, obviously, any link that we post, and we're always public about it, is an affiliate link because, well, I want to make some cash on it. And if it's not an affiliate link, I use a tracker. So we use a B link to capture it and track that, so we know the traffic came through our link. So when we go to companies for sponsorships, we can say, hey, we've had this many clicks through the link, that we made for your product. How many sales did you get? And then we look at what the actual rate is of capturing. So getting that click is great, but if it doesn't translate into a sale, that necessarily isn't a good ROI for them. So when we work with companies, we want to make sure that their ROI is good. And I'm talking about on the content creation side, right? Because I am a business owner. I understand that ROI, return on investment. If a company is going to give me money to talk about their products, they need to see a return on that money, or it doesn't make sense for them to continue that relationship. Now, the first time they might not see it, right? So it really is kind of a positive sum average, right? You want to make sure that over the course of time, they're averaging out to be in the black rather than in the red, because you don't want to ever be in the red. Yeah. Worst Peter says, China also makes you pay for mold storage cost. Oh, okay. There's also trustee systems to protect production assets overseas. If you know your way around it, you can somewhat safely produce in Asia. I don't know my way around it. And, often if I was looking to do that kind of thing, I would go to Jason, I would go to Polymaker, I would go to these companies that have relationships and can actually natively speak the language and say, hey, I want to get this produced. Is this something you guys would be interested in producing? And if not, do you mind, for a fee, running the interference for me so that we get everything taken care of and they don't recognize that I'm just a, stupid American that doesn't know what they're doing and they can take advantage of me. Someone that can speak the native language will get you much better pricing, much better customer service, and they're a lot less likely to screw you because, especially if they can get there in person, there's a trust thing that works on it. So you got to be careful with that. Yeah, RAM and more RAM sucks at the scanner's PC only. Well, the Riffle Point range is not PC only. You can run it off a phone, but it doesn't really need, I could run it off of my laptop with integrated graphics, like with AMD. It's AMD 4700U. It runs just fine with the integrated graphics. So, I don't know, take that with whatever grain of salt you want, but understand that any scanner that can also run on a phone is not going to give you the best results. Creality, of all companies, sent me a scanner. They sent me the CR Scan Ferret, so we'll have to be doing a video on that soon as well. And I'm going to compare it up against the Revel Point range because they're in the same price bracket. I think it might be a little bit cheaper for this Creality scanner, but we're going to take a look at it and we're going to decide if we like it or not. So, you know, that's your kind of thing. Get subscribed because that's happening as well. Engineering AF said, who was the person that you mentioned? Jason? Jason from LDO or Nick from Polymaker? Nick from Polymaker actually lives in China. So, you know, might have some opportunities there. And I would assume that a lot of them are willing to take a consulting fee to be able to help you find a manufacturer that's not going to screw you. So, yeah. And Makerspace says, thank you for taking the time to explain everything that is involved with the 3D printing business. I'm happy to do it, right? Now, there are, of course, things I'm not going to talk a ton about, like how we do our pricing. You're not going to get that from me. Bamboo, did you just break something? Yep, it did. Okay, I can see parts. Anyways, yeah, there'll be certain things that I won't talk about, you know, on stream. And, you know, if you're not in the same general geographic region as us and you're not going to go after our customers and you sign a contract stating that, I'll be happy to talk with people a little bit more, you know, cleanly about it. But at that point, you are going to pay me for consulting. So, you know, grain of salt that, but, you know, if you want, email me. Yeah. And the fun thing is with the Bamboo, since it's not connected to the internet, I can't stop it. I'd have to get up to stop it, and I'm not going to do that. Oh, well. So, yeah. Ben Cox says, 83 watching, 56 likes. Hit that like button. That's right. Don't forget to like the stream. Hang out with us. Thank you guys for showing up, hanging out, commenting, and all that. It's awesome. George White says, dang, Tinkercad's taking a while to import his SVG. Tinkercad is a great tool, man. For the money, it's a great tool. Pantone Diago says, is an open source product worth producing? It seems like Prusa made it worth without a lot of patents, etc. Is keeping part premium and prices higher part of why they were successful? Yeah, I think it was. I mean, obviously the commitment to open source is a big deal of why Prusa has been successful, but they're also 24/7 real human customer support is another reason why they're so successful. Because again, businesses are happy to pay for that extra bit if they don't have to deal with the BS. Dealing with BS is not fun. Nobody likes doing it. And while you might feel like it's okay to go through the rigmarole with a poverty Prusa like an SV06 because it's a $250 printer and at some point I'll just buy another one, with a Prusa where I can just go onto live chat, talk with Prusa, and be able to get answers from them fast, that is worth its weight in gold to me as a business owner. And it's actually why we're going to be testing Bamboo. So we have another Bamboo that no one is aware of. I mean, I've talked about it a couple of times on the channel, but we haven't shown it. And I have a burner account with a burner email that is in no way, shape, or form associated with me. The name is even different. And we're going to see how fast I get a response time if I submit a ticket through my account with Bamboo and if I submit a ticket through this account with Bamboo. Because I'm fairly certain my account has been connected to our channel is getting preferential treatment. And if it is, I'm calling them out on it because I don't think companies should be doing that. And while I do recognize that after my first issue with Bamboo that I should have gotten some and they should have gone through and checked the printer, they didn't. And I have to give them credit for that because, well, they don't do that kind of thing. But if they did, I wouldn't have taken that away from them. But I have to give them credit because they said, no, we're just going to send you another one. Like, okay, no problem. Happy to do that. So yeah, there is some value to open source, but the problem with open source is that you will be dealing with copycats because you're literally making it pretty much immediately easy to do it. There are a lot of products from companies that are traditionally open source, like E3D. E3D has been patenting things around the Revo, and that's okay. I don't see an issue with it. What it means is it enables them to maintain manufacturing superiority and then provide it to production partners like LDO is able to produce parts for the Revo. And I don't know if it's any that are patented, but LDO does do some production for the LDO kits because they're the only ones that have the blue heat sinks. I guess the heat sinks are the cold side, which is open source. But the idea of a patent is that it enables you to maintain manufacturing superiority. And if you choose to license it to others for production, great, you can. But the other problem with a patent is if you cannot defend it, it is null and voided. So you can spend 25 grand to get yourself a patent and feel great with a nice fancy piece of paper on the wall. But as soon as somebody copies you and you don't sue them, they can then sue you and invalidate your patent. And all that money that you put into it, evaporated, gone. And I can tell you, you're not going to like that feeling. So let's see what else we got. Ruin says, ooh, some say scanner head-to-head already waiting. Yeah, we'll be doing head-to-head. I mean, I did it. We did when we were looking at the RevoPoint range, we compared it to the Artec Eva, which is a scanner that's more than 20 times its price. In fact, the software for the Eva is more expensive than range is every year. So there's value to that, but range actually held its own. I was pretty impressed with it. And now with its newest software, it's pretty good. Zerno says, I wonder if we can get the pricing info by bribing Victoria. It's possible. It's possible. She sleeps on the job a lot. Engineered AF says, have you ever evaluated the business of producing filament? I've looked at it, but realistically, your target customers are consumers. And with companies like GST that are producing filament for sub $10 a kilo in the US, they're not doing it in the US. They're shipping over big coils and they're recoiling it here in the States. I don't even know if they're still around. It's not a business model that works, in my opinion. It has to be a volume play. Companies like CookieCAD have been producing very unique colors, unique blends, and that kind of thing. But they're charging a fair bit for it too. Obviously, getting into retail for filament is a good move too. If you can get your filament held into Micro Center, it works. But you also then have to compete with the Inland brand, which is... Oh, we lost some frames there. You have to compete with the Inland brand. Oh, yep. Had 2 drop packets. Cool. Thanks, Spectrum. You have to compete with the Inland brand, which is, well, it's Sunlu, eSun, and Polymaker, I believe, are the OEMs for it, depending on the type of filament. So, yeah, there's that. I must have missed something. Jake says, I'm having great luck printing things for large-scale chicken farms, road crop farms, and local factories. I think I'm now getting over the hump convincing all the old farmers it benefits them. Yeah, I bet that one's been fun. Good old boy businesses are the worst. They're so tough to get in. Once you can get into them, they're good. But getting into them's the tough part. Feather 0Z says, I missed the start of the stream that has a very interesting title. We've been talking about it the whole time, talking about pricing and why it matters. So you're good. The Bamboo is not using bandwidth because it is not connected to the internet. It is functionally blocked from my internet, which is always fun. But yeah, the business model of selling filament, you have to be different at this point, right? You've got Printed Solid and Atomic, IC3D, Push Plastic, and a few others that are producing in the United States. So just being made in America is not going to be good enough. You've got companies like Atomic that are charging $30 a kilo, $32 a kilo for their top end stuff that just released a more affordable line with limited color selections for the $20-ish a kilo range, because what they likely found is a lot of their customers are ordering white, black, and clear. Those are easy colors to make, and if they can produce it at a lower price point, they're able to compete more adequately with other big businesses. But things like, and I love Polymaker, but I can't really define paying $20+ a kilo for filament that's not made in the United States. Now, their new Starlight stuff, I dig it, and I'm really excited, and I want to get some in. And that's a cool color because nobody else is doing it. But beyond that, and I like their material, to be clear. I like Polymaker. It's just very, very expensive without a discount code. And it stops being worth it to me when I can support a company like Printed Solid. I really like Printed Solid. They don't even pay me to say it. And I highly recommend their filament. Bamboos don't like it without a Hydra AMS, apparently. So, that's going to be a thing. So, Geek Toy Boss says more brands need to add a scent like Sliceworks. Walk into the room, it smells like vanilla. I got to try that out and see if it affects the strength of the parts. We'll have to see. Yeah, if you're getting some issues with it, go ahead and just refresh the stream. Geek Toy Boss says, who would visit California for a Rep Festival? If I was paid, I would do it. It's all the traveling starts to get very, very expensive. Forced Indentured Servant. Jeez, you guys' names are rough. 5-kilogram polymaker rolls are a good deal. And they probably are, but a lot of printers don't like 5-kilo spools. In fact, I've got a 2.5-kilo roll that we've been evaluating for a customer. Oh, hey, the bamboo's done. We have a 2.5-kilo roll that we've been evaluating for a customer. And it doesn't fit in any of my dryers. So it's like, oh, okay, I have to manually respool it, and I haven't yet built a respooler, but obviously that is something that I will need to do. So, yeah, it happens. So, yeah, and I agree with Zerno. It's always good for filament companies to show up to rep festivals, give out samples and all of that, right? Because those samples people are going to use, they might like it. If they like it, it's got, the details on the bag that you gave out. It is about the marketing thing, and having companies and having that presence is important. It is. All right. So let's get back into charging for your time. Let's get into design. Designing is one of the most time-intensive things that we do because, CAD work is pretty much just pure time, and there's no way around it. It's just pure time. We started in the beginning of 3D Musketeers at $50 an hour for CAD. And I think if you're charging less than that, you're doing it wrong as a business. Now, for staff, we start staff at $30 an hour for CAD designers. I've got a few that we still need to get back with. We were looking to hire a bunch of people because we were getting really, really busy. And now I've made a decision with 3D Musketeers that we're not going to be taking any more crazy rush jobs like we've been doing because it just runs me just ragged and I can't keep doing it. So I don't know if we really need a lot of staff right now. Either way, looking at design time, since it is just pure personnel time or pure your time, you need to make sure that you're charging, adequately for it. Ruin says, I'm only hearing every 17th word. Go ahead and refresh the stream. Oh, looks like they've already done that. Refresh worked. Great. Cool. Love it. So yeah, you've got to look at that. You've got to look at what that is all worth. And you might say, well, Grant, I don't get paid $50 an hour in my day job. So why should I make $50 an hour doing work for others? Because you're a business, damn it. Start acting like one. Seriously. You are now the owner that has overhead. And while you might be working out of your house, which is totally fine, nothing wrong with that, you still have extra power that you're using since you're home all the time. You have expenses of machines, maintenance, materials, labor. All of this starts to add up very quickly. And a good place to make money is on the design side. Your time is worth a lot. And if you don't know how to design, then hire people that can. As of currently filming this video, we are at $150 an hour for design time. That's what we build. And we pay our people well. Our people like working with us, and it works out well. But what happens is that we can get really busy. And if we do get busy, I either start delaying projects for clients or we start charging more because it has to be worth our time to start working people harder to make it worthwhile to take these jobs, right? Not everyone wants to work 18 hours a day. I don't even want to work 18 hours a day, yet I still find myself doing it. So be careful about how much time you work and understand how long it takes you to do projects. The first few products that you do, you'll likely underbid for and underquote. That happens. Eat that, move on, and learn how long it takes you to do something. Stick to your guns. If you tell someone it's going to take you 4 hours and it happens to take you 6, you just worked for a little bit less per hour. If you quote them 4 and it took you 3, pocket that extra money, baby. That's what it's all about. If they paid you, they're okay with the price. Don't give them money back. If you want to feel good about it, give them money back. But you're a business. That's called profit. And it's okay. I promise. It's okay. It's not often that we run into those issues. And if we are egregiously over for some reason, and I don't know why we would be, we will put that money toward printing. So like if I build for 10 hours, but it only took us 4, I'll put those 6 hours toward doing some sort of printing, right? Where, okay, it's not a sunk cost for them. They, look at us as being, considerably reasonable with this kind of thing. But if it's like a half hour, I'm not going to bother because, well, I probably spent that time and just forgot to notate it, It ends up getting used, right? Oh, Zero says a good chunk of the cost of Polymega fulfillment goes to pay Amazon. It seems fulfillment from their side is even through Amazon. It is. Yeah, Amazon is not cheap. It's not cheap at all. Allison Ford is asking if I'm coming to Smurf, the Sanjay Mortimer Rep Rap Festival. I am going to try. We are actively seeking sponsors for that. So, yeah, it will be a thing. Ajax is asking how we accurately quote for a time estimate on CAD. Time. You just learn it over the years. You kind of know the speed of your team, and some of our team work faster, some of them work slower, and I try to put myself somewhere in the middle. That way, on the jobs where someone works a little bit slower, we eat a little bit of extra cost on it. It is what it is. And on the jobs where people are faster, and we have the faster people on the jobs, we get it done faster. We make a little bit more money. No problem. I will say the faster that somebody can work, the more we'll pay them. Because if they do good work and they can do it fast, they deserve more money because they need to get paid the effective rate, right? They need to get paid an effective rate. And we have a staff member that makes quite a bit of money because he is basically double the speed of anybody else on the team, which is awesome. I love it. But it means that I have to ask him, is this in your hours or real people hours? Whose hours are we looking at here? Because it is funny. He works that fast. Ruin says, I backed the Revo Point range and have yet to receive the scanner. I've been told 2 delivery time frames and both have passed. I'm saddened to see it available on Amazon before I got it. Reach out to them again. And if you still have issues, email me and I'll reach out to my contacts there because they did send us one for review. So I do have some contacts at Revo Point. So yeah, I'm happy to help people if I can with, that kind of thing because that's not cool. You don't want to see that. Now, mind you, it might have been a reseller that ordered 1,000 of them and is now selling them on Amazon. But if it is Revo Point selling their own scanners on Amazon before they fully done their Kickstarters, that's just not cool. That's just not cool. One thing that I don't understand. Oh, so Cole's asking, one thing I don't understand with pricing is when I see some models out there that people are selling prints of for $20 to $25 that I know take 9 hours plus to print. And I just can't wrap that around my head. Look where they're located. Oftentimes, when you see prices that low, they're in areas that have a very, very low cost of living. Food is cheap. Rent is cheap. Everything is cheap. It is often in areas where even labor is cheap. Because of all of that, they don't value their time as much. Because they might value their time at the equivalent, right? Where I value my time at $150 an hour. So yes, a now hour and a half live stream to me is worth $215. I'm good at math, I promise. And we almost never make up that time here, right? The ad revenue is terrible. And it's not often that we get enough donations to even get close to it. But I do it because this is the kind of stuff that I love, and I want to help people like you guys that are looking to take that business to a next level or that hobby to a next level. And I think that there's value to it. And maybe you all become Patreons or something. I don't know. But yeah, you really do have to look at where somebody is located to understand all of that. And the location often will clue you in that they're not spending as much money as the rest of us are, or they're willing to spend less to get volume. It can be a volume play. And if you have an army like Slant3D does, Slant3D has like 900 printers. They're able to pump parts out so fast that they can charge ridiculously low rates because they are able to pump it out that fast. That's just the way that it is. And that's why I tell people, stop competing on price. You're too cheap. If you want to compete on price, don't bitch about not making enough money because you did it to yourself. There you have nobody else to blame but yourself. House and Force says, "Oh, I might actually get to meet you then. Potentially." We're looking into it. Really, really trying to make that happen. And as Duff says, your hourly rate does not equal the rate your boss charges. That's right. We had someone apply years ago to work with us, and I asked them how much they wanted to make. They said $150 an hour. I said, you don't have the portfolio for that. They said, well, yeah, but that's what you charge everybody else. I want to make what you charge. I said, I don't think you understand how this works, because that's not how that works. I have to make a profit on top of it, or I can't pay myself. They completely ignored the fact that we have other expenses other than just them. And needless to say, we obviously didn't go with that person, but I tried to educate them before they left, because that hurt my soul a little bit when they clearly don't value my time, which means they don't value theirs either. They're just trying to get an astronomical number, or they were just wasting my time in the interview. Yeah. It's a thing. Is audio cutting just for me? Might be because of the HomePod. Refresh the stream if you're still getting audio cuts. Super Kara says, trust me, you bring labor value much higher than your wage to your day job. If your employer rented your services to another company, they wouldn't charge them $15 an hour, but much higher. Yep. Nursing is one of the things where you can actually figure out your value pretty easily. Go look at doing travel nursing and see how much more money you make. And then remember, the travel nursing companies are charging the hospitals more than that. Like, you can make 50% more money by doing travel nursing. Now, it's terrible. It will beat the hell out of you, and it takes a special person to be able to handle it. Amber could only do it for so long because it's rough. And the hospitals that she was travel nursing with aren't great and might be. Anyways, we're not going to get deep into that. But, she was making like an extra 50%. And yeah, it was really good money. But the mental hit on it just wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it. But yeah, businesses where you can go from full-time to travel and you notice the pay difference that you get, that's how you realize what your value actually is to a company. And you might be able to use that as leverage, or you might be able to say, you know what, I'll just stick doing part-time work and doing it for more money. Now, that does, of course, mean that you have to pay for your own healthcare and that kind of stuff. But if you're making 50% more money, the healthcare side of it is relatively affordable on top. Jake says, funny story about getting around the good old boy club. He was doing a 3D printed cup holder for a local big time farmer side by side. He didn't charge anything when he did it, but now he needs more printers. Yeah. If there are big people that have those connections local to you, there might be a benefit in hooking them up with a piece or two so that they can tell other people, especially in these good old boy businesses. If word gets around that you're the guy to go to versus a competitor or the person to go to, you've got a business model that just prints money. Just literally prints money. So you do have to be careful, because it can be pretty simple for somebody else to do that. And if somebody else is already ingrained in a good old boy business, getting them out and getting yourself in is probably more work than it's worth. So be cautious on that one, because it can be tough. And I don't want to see people struggling to enter into an industry that has no desire to change who their vendor is. Because at the end of the day, a lot of like the vendor to business model is all about trust, understanding, and communication. And if you've got all of those down, even if you screw up a job or two, they're not going to get rid of you, because the value of trying to find somebody new and hoping they're as good at all of those things versus you is much, much more work to them. Remember, it's as hard for them to find new vendors as it is for you to find new consumers, if not harder, because they've got more, BS they have to go through to get someone through the process. So if you are going to screw up and you know you're going to screw up on a job, let them know ahead of time. Say, hey, I'm going to be a few days late. I'm sorry. Cut them a discount, give it to them for free, do whatever you got to do to keep the contract or the job. But, don't say too bad, deal with it, because they're not going to deal with it. Nobody deals with it like that. So, let's see. Ludwig says 18 hours a day in German. We call that. I'm not even going to do. It's a obviously German thing. It's got the umlauts, which is combined from the words for on your own and all the time. So, selbstständig. Standig. I'm going to butcher that, but yeah. Oh, there's Amber. Not worth the money. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm sorry. We actually did take off last weekend. So Amber and I were at the Rocky Mountain Rep Rat Fest. And then I took a vacation for the first time in 15 years. Like, I want you guys to think about that. The first time in 15 years, I took some time off, and my God, it was, first off, Colorado is amazing, and I want to move there. Like, 48-month goal is to get enough money to move to Colorado. That would be amazing. But my God, it was so pretty. We drove up into the mountains, and just also, shout out to the Patreon member that sent us the Sony camera, not this one, the really nice one. You know who you are. I don't see you in the chat right now, but if you're listening, thank you, because my God, the pictures I got with that camera out there and the video that we got with that camera, my God, there is no replacement for good glass. Phones took great photos, but there is no replacement for good glass. It was, oh God, the photos are so beautiful. I'll post the album, that we have in Google Photos in the Discord. Or Amber, if you want to post that into the Discord server, you can, so Patreon members can see, because, dude, those photos are amazing. Anyways. Yeah, so Amber said that she quit because every hospital had not one SOP, standard operating procedure, for nurses, and she felt like she was going to lose her license every day, or worse, go to jail. Yeah, nurses have it a little bit more rough than the maker businesses. So while it might be tough, it might be tough for me to do 18-hour days all the time, I'm not constantly trying to keep people from dying like Amber is. So, consider that when you look at the amount of time that you spend on things. Geek Toy Box says, give him a taste of the good stuff, then get him hooked just like a dealer. Honestly, I find that it is often good to send a part when we are like working with new companies, or take a printer to them and say, hey, let's set up a meeting. We go to the meeting and I bring a printer and I slap it on that. It's always my Prusa Mini with the Revo, because it just always works. And I always print vases. Always. It's the only thing we ever print when we're in meetings with people, because it's the only thing that you can get done fast enough to see some really decent Z height move. And then I leave it with them. It's normally like a clock spring vase that we just kind of leave with them, and it's no big deal. And they love it. It's just the coolest thing. We were in a meeting with Advent Health Zephyr Hills, and they were not paying attention to me at all. They were enthralled with the printer. So yeah, it was kind of cool. Ben Cox says, Florida man will soon not like the cold. Well, we were up in the mountains and it was sub 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and I was in a t-shirt. Like, you can actually see in the photos, Amber's in a jacket. There is snow on the ground, and I'm in a t-shirt like this, like one of these wicking shirts, because if there's no wind, it's really not that bad. It's actually quite pleasant. And I have very oily skin, so like being in the dry climate was just amazing, because it didn't feel like the Exxon Valdez had just leaked all over my face. That's a terrible thing to say. Well, that's live and that's there forever, so that sucks. Oh well. But yeah, I really, really liked Colorado, and some awesome people out there. But hey, what are you going to do? Sometimes you say dumb shit and you don't even realize it. I'm like, oh, I'm going down a bad path. Well, we're getting there. Yeah, whatever. Y'all are going to clip it. I don't give a shit. Whatever. I mean, seriously, if I turn up here, you can see how shiny my face is. It's not from the lighting. It's because my skin's oily, but enjoy it. Anyways, back on track. God, that didn't even wake the cat. She is so tired. She's done literally nothing today, and she is so tired. God, can I get a like for the cat? Come on. A like for the cat. Whatever. Florida man puts his foot in his mouth all the damn time. I'm just not that flexible. And you all don't pay enough for that. That's for the OnlyFans. Horse Peter says, can you share your skincare routine? I wake up and I get to work. I don't really do anything else. Anyways, so Toy Box says there's a track. Well, there's probably not a track. We're just having fun. You know, whatever. We're here. And now I have 4 messages on Discord. I wonder who. Oh, yeah. Yep. It's all people making fun of me. Yeah, that's okay. All right, moving on. So we come down to this thing of, well, Grant, if I'm too cheap, what isn't too cheap? Well, I say if people are willing to pay it and you're making enough money to survive, pay your bills, have some money in the bank, and enjoy it, that's probably enough. I would say if inflation is going up, your prices should be too. If inflation is going down, maybe cut some deals. If you're trying to get into bed with new clients and new businesses, cut them a deal for the first time. Say, hey, first time discount, we'll cut you 25%, knowing that you're not going to make a ton of money on it, but it gives them a much lower risk of doing business with you. And say, hey, first one's nice and cheap. That way you can see if you like what we do. And if you do, next one, it's going to cost you. And people like that kind of thing. They're down for it because they might only ever need one job. And they get that little discount and they move on. But what you know is you're really only cutting them like 10% because you knew you were going to offer that rate to begin with. So you deliberately padded your invoice so you didn't create a massive loss of revenue. Always make sure that you can cut small discounts. Like we do 25% minimum for students. The thing is, this is a trick. If you are a student, tell somebody you're a student. If you don't tell me you're a student, I'm not going to give you the discount. If you ask me for a student discount after you've paid, it's too late. You've already paid. But if you say, hey, this is for a school project, I say, oh, what's school? They tell me what school. I'm like, oh, cool. Here's student discount. Like, oh, cool, thanks. I'm like, yeah, I know, we're pretty expensive if you don't have that discount. I said, I'm still pretty expensive even with the discount. But a lot of times it's because they needed something now and they're willing to pay for it. And if I can cut them a little bit of a break, they'll come back to us every semester. Like, I know at the end of the semesters, the 3 times a year, I have to have printers open because we're going to get busy. It happens every time. People that wait to the last minute, that need, God knows what, it's all there and it's available. And we like to help them. But you gotta tell me that you're, that you're in school and you gotta be able to prove it. Don't try to get the student discount if you're not a student, because I will find out. Who's pinging me? Oh. Amber's pinging me. Yes, Amber, you can put the Google Photo link in the travel Discord. That is fine. Speaking of resin, when are we getting some Resin is Toxic stickers? So we have put a hard hold on all merch at this point. I'm too busy right now. And that's part of actually why I'm slowing down some work here at 3DM to kind of focus more on the YouTuber stuff, like the merch and being more better branded for myself, right? Wearing nothing but company branded clothing, whether it's t-shirts, polos, lab coats, coming soon, TM. And these are all things that we will be offering in an online store at some point. But it's a business model, right? The merch side is a business model. And those of you that see me at festivals, ask me for stickers. I always have stickers. Now, they might not be on me. You might just have to meet me at the hotel later that night. But ask Zerno. He got one of every sticker that we have, and that's a lot of stickers. We have a lot of stickers. So yeah, if you want to get some stickers, come find me at events and ask. I will try to start keeping them in my bag, but they're all individually packed, and that means there's a lot of them. Duff is asking for Victoria shirts when. So we do, of course, have the Victoria logo, and Miss Amber recently got an embroidery machine, and this was the first thing that she embroidered, and it is the cutest thing you ever did, dear C. So, I don't know if Amber wants to do production on all of this. She probably doesn't. We do have an embroidery person. But this Amber did this on a single needle embroidery. So she changed all of these colors by hand. It's pretty cool. And her embroidery machine is a Husqvarna. And I laugh because it's a chainsaw. It's not a chainsaw, but they make chainsaws. And yes, this thing pulls focus really, really fast. Uh, um, so Daddy Wazzy, the creator, says, first thing I ask any business I shop from is, do you have a veterans discount? Nobody's ever asked us for one. So, I mean, I would probably give a veterans discount, but you got to show me, is it the DD14? The DD20? I forget. There's a form or an ID or something that proves you're in the military, because stolen valor, you ain't going to do business with me. Free patch with every $100 super chat, Cerno says. I mean, I would look at hand stitching them for $100 a piece. I'm not going to do that. No, we're going to end up having a store where you guys can buy stuff. I very much enjoyed the tested ones. Like Amber got me a set of these. This is the 3D printing spaghetti, and I've always liked these, but I don't necessarily know how to do it without like blatantly ripping it off. But I keep them handy because they remind me that, sometimes the the things aren't always going to go to plan. So Amber says, only if I'm getting a kickback. See, she understands the business side of it. It is the DD214. Okay. See, she understands the business side of this. She'll do it, but only if she's getting paid for it. There you go. Oh, the demerit badges. War Speeder says, could I get a veterans discount for serving in non-US forces? You could, but chances are it'll be more affordable for you to shop with a 3D printer that is local to you if you need to do outsource work like that. So, yeah. George White says, no one around here will pay $150 an hour for a vase from Prussia that can be sold commercially that takes 8 hours. Well, I'm not saying 3D printing at $150 an hour, obviously. That's for design work, right? So design is like custom art. It's a one-time charge, and then from there, you can make as many of them as you want. It's like literally paying for digitizing on embroidery stuff. You have to pay for that upfront charge no matter how many pieces you get embroidered, because they have to digitize all the stuff. So it's okay. Don't be afraid, but you have to charge what you're worth. Yeah, don't charge $150 an hour for a vase that can be sold commercially that takes 8 hours. Nobody's going to pay for that. Now, if it is a really big vase or something like that, sure. But often the big thing of why vases take long, here's a secret, is you need to turn off your minimum layer time when you're running vase mode. Because since vase mode is always going up in the Z-axis, it counts those as layers. And because of that, you end up with a system that thinks it's got like a million layers. So it's taking 15 seconds for every one of those little hike ups. And that's why vases take so damn long. So turn off minimum layer time when you're working on vases. And if you do time lapses for vases like we do, you don't run vase mode. You actually run a 2 perimeter shell and no infill. That's how we do it. And you don't see any scarring on the side because you do interior perimeters first. All the scarring is on the inside of it. But yeah. So George White says I might be able to get $25 for a vase that takes 8 hours to print. Fine. But that means you're not selling vases. So don't sell vases. Selling things like architecture companies, engineering firms, companies that do production like CNC milling and injection molding. They need 3D printing. They may not know it, but they need 3D printing. And that's where you can start charging real money for your time. Again, it is very specific on where you live, right? Jake lives out in the country, so he's able to work with farmers. Getting involved with farmers is just easy money. As long as you can get involved with them. You got to get past the good old boy thing. And Jake's figured it out. And he'll have a phenomenal business model until somebody else tries to come in and go after him. And the thing to do is you keep up and say, hey, has anybody else ever contacted you? I'm curious to see if we've got any competition out there. I don't know about them, so they probably suck at marketing. But it's good to keep an eye on your competition because they are also watching you. And you may not know it. Ultem vase for $150. It'll probably cost you more than that in Ultem. Unwound, absolutely pay for an Ultem vase. Yeah. And Eskers Catlett says $150 an hour is not the print price. It's the grant doing things price. Machine time is not people time. Yeah. So we have a very complex formula that we do that includes things like, are you an asshole? There is a modifier that if you're a jerk to me, I'm adding money to your price because I just don't want to put up with you. There's a modifier for time. If something takes a long time, I'm going to add a modifier to that. And if it is needed to be done fast, that often doubles the price. If you have a sub 3-day turnaround, that doubles your price often because you need it and I'm the only one that can do it. So you're going to pay me to do it because that means I have to ignore everybody else while I do work for you. And that doesn't always work for me. As Zerner says, one of the farmer's grandchildren gets into 3D printing, that it all goes to heck. And that's fine. You know, that's fine. Zerno says, how do we know Grant isn't a machine? I wish I was, because then I wouldn't need to sleep, but my body, for some reason, believes I need to sleep. It's terrible, and I hate it. So, yeah, it's not $150 an hour for printing, right? Often, for us, it works out around the $10 an hour for printing range. But because it is very variable for each person, even things like, do you need it shipped, adds cost onto it, because it's the cost of the shipping label, the cost of handling, the cost of packing, even the cost of driving it to the post office, because our mail person is really unreliable for taking things out of my mailbox. Great for putting them in, unreliable for taking them out. And now my local post office closed. They were a contract unit, so now I have to go a little bit further in the wrong direction to get to a post office. Or I have to go to UPS and give it to UPS and hope they haven't already had USPS pick up. So there's a lot of very specific things that work into this that end up being problems. So you gotta really look at every bit. And I took the time early on to build this formula. We will not be giving it out. I don't care how much money you give me. I'm not giving it to you. Because the way that I value my time isn't going to be different from the way that you value yours. Ultimately, you're too cheap. I'm probably too cheap. And you need to raise your prices. If you haven't raised your prices in the last 3 years, what's wrong with you? Raise your damn prices. Everybody else is. Even, hell, Dollar Tree is now $1.25 Tree. They added 25% to their prices. No one gives a shit. People still shop there all the time. We make fun of it, but we still shop there. I bought stuff from Dollar Tree yesterday. They sell vinyl. And I need vinyl for a project. So, yeah. You gotta really be able to look at what your time is worth. George White says then $15 to $20 an hour for me locally. Since I don't know CAD, I can't charge $150 an hour. That's fair. You can't. What you can do is you can work with a company like 3D Musketeers. We have wholesale rates for CAD. You work with the designers. I don't run, if I have to run intermediary, I'm charging you the full $150. But if you can work directly with designers or give us really, really easy projects to design, we'll work with you for a lower price than $150. It's wholesale. But you can also look at finding people on Fiverr and Upwork. Hell, go to your local colleges that have an engineering program. Hire people out of there for beer money. They'll do it. Now, they might not have all the time in the world, but they'll do it. There are ways around these problems where you don't have to be skilled at everything to be able to offer a lot of things. I'm not that great at CAD. We have a team of engineers that are. I'm much better at sales than I am at CAD, and I'm arguably mediocre at sales, right? So when I need help, I go to our CAD guys and say, hey, I need some help on this. And a lot of times they're willing to help. The part behind me was a full custom design that we did here in shop. The guy that designed it doesn't have access to 3D printers at home, so I was printing out lots of samples and kind of telling him how things fit and how parts work together. And it was a great back and forth, and it worked out really, really well. So be careful. Allison Ford says, am I cutting vinyl with a Cricut? No, I'm cutting it with an X-Acto knife. We have a project where two pieces fit together and there's not a ton of room for glue. So I'm actually going to be putting in some construction adhesive on the back and then putting a piece of vinyl along the back. So the sticky vinyl will hold the pieces together while the construction adhesive dries, keeping them from ever coming apart again. That's what I love about it. Ben Cox says, it's to line the garage floor to make the blood easy to clean up when he starts trying to fix the broken bamboo that got delivered. Engineer AF says, how does someone compete with a talented high schooler with a 3D print farm working out of their parents' basement? You actually offer real customer service. You give a shit about engineering jobs, and you don't act like a high schooler working out of their mom's basement. So, yeah. You say, I have an EIN number. I am a business. You get badass business cards made. You go buy a laser if you need to make your own damn cards. Or you buy cards from us. We make cards for people for $1 a piece, $100 minimum order. You know, you basically act the part. You be the part the high schooler can't, which is answering the phone all the time, answering emails all the time, not using slang terminology that adults are obviously not going to get, and making a website that looks good, that has testimonials. And if you don't have testimonials, ask for them. The only way you get testimonials is if you ask for them. So, we are at over 2 hours, and that means I got to call this one. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have any extra questions to add on, let me know before we call it, and I'll answer them. But, yeah. It was good. It was a good week off. The channel has just, its metrics have tanked, which sucks, but oh well. Welcome to YouTube. You miss 1 day of doing videos correctly, and the algorithm's like, rah, slaps you down. Get the bitch slap of the algorithm. But yeah, I have to get ready, because I'm going to dinner for my dad's birthday, and as I said, I have the best gift for my father. I'm not telling you guys because he's probably watching. He is going to laugh when he gets it, and I am excited for it. But that is all that I have for you guys today. Make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, support us on Patreon, YouTube channel members, and now PayPal if you do so feel that we've earned it. But stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Charge more for your time, damn it! And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Season 3, what's this? Episode 32. Yeah. Gotta love it. See you guys.